What up, Cucks? It's your boy, the Hater, up in this piece. And today, I want to talk about the inevitable feud between CM Cuck and Drew McIntyre, right? Clearly, this is going to be a big deal when it happens. And when I say clearly it's going to be a big deal, obviously what I mean is they're going to present it to us as a big deal, but I couldn't give a shit, right? Drew McIntyre, the chosen one of WWE, has not lived up to his hype. Now, at this point, Drew is a two-time WWE champion, and he main evented WrestleMania. But as time has gone on, his main event run feels a lot like Kofi Mania or like Daniel Bryan, like the Yes Movement, right? It doesn't feel like a main eventer was made, right? This is evidenced by the fact that he's now wrestling for the mid-card title, number one. And number two, it's made evident by the fact that he has no chance to win the Royal Rumble this year and likely not next year either, right? Back in the day, you knew that there was a hierarchy, right? But there was always a shot that some people were going to win the Rumble, right? My favorite Royal Rumble of all time, there's two that I particularly like. The one that Benoit won and the one that Mysterio won. And the reason, especially the Benoit one, the reason why I like that one a lot is because that year in the Royal Rumble, there were a lot of people that could have won, right? You never knew, right? It was like the breakout year of people like Carlito, of people like fucking Chris Masters, right? You never knew if they were going to pull the trigger on Carlito and Masters, right? You never knew if, for example, Edge was going to have that moment, right? If they were going to pull the trigger on him. You never knew if it was going to be Cena's moment, right? You never knew there was a lot of people that were getting pushed at that time, right? So you had no idea what was going to happen, right? It could have been Angle. There were so many people that it could have been that when Benoit won, it was a shocker because he was not one of those people. Now, in the build-up, there was a chance. You're like, oh, it could be Benoit, but like that's a long shot, right? And it was Benoit. It was one of the best Rumbles ever because, same thing with Rey Mysterio, because you're like, I just don't think it's going to be one of these fucks, right? Yeah, Benoit was definitely like a top 10, right? It wouldn't have been shocking if he was in like the top 3 or top 4 at the Rumble, but it's unlikely that he was going to win, right? And I remember as a kid watching when it was Benoit and Big Show, and I'm like, all right, Big Show never wins these things, right? But I'm like, but he has a chance because the other guy is Benoit, right? So everyone had a chance. Nowadays, you know that nobody has a chance. You know it was going to be either CM Cuck or Cucky Rhodes. So the fact that Drew McIntyre wants to throw his hat in the ring is immaterial. I don't care like if him and Gunther are in the final 3. I mean, they shouldn't be because if they're in the final 3, then it's like, you know that the third guy is going to win. Like, you know there's no chance that Gunther and Drew McIntyre, 2 mid-carders, are going to win and main event WrestleMania again. It's not going to happen, right? It felt different when Drew McIntyre did win. But the reality is what the reality is, right? None of these guys feel like main eventers. This is also obviously corroborated by the fact that at some point last year, Drew McIntyre, the same Drew McIntyre that's challenging for a quote-unquote world title at WrestleMania, this same cuck lost to Gunther in a throwaway Intercontinental title match, right? He is a mid-card jobber who can't even beat the Intercontinental champion. So if he beats the World Heavyweight Champion, all that says to me is that the World Heavyweight title should be below the Intercontinental title because, long story short, Drew McIntyre tried to win one, failed, and now if he succeeds in winning the other, what does that say about our champions, right? So that being said, the other side of the coin is CM Cuck. CM Cuck, the problem with him, of course, is that he came back, he just cut a few promos, at this point, he came back in like November, right, in Survivor Series, and it's been it's been almost 5 months, right? Almost 6 months soon, and probably it'll be 7 to 8 months before he comes back and wrestles again, if not longer, right? So, and before you know it, it's going to be a year since his return, and nothing to show for it except for a shitty performance at the Royal Rumble where he looked like shit, and an injury that followed up, right? So with all that being said, why in the blue hell would I or anybody else care about CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre? you can try to build the feud, and they've tried, and I will give them credit where credit's due, right? Drew McIntyre consistently talking about CM Punk and having a shirt that says injure CM Punk in like a checklist form, and then CM Punk coming back and just talking shit about Drew McIntyre does push the ball forward. But the problem is, nobody cares about the ball. I don't care who comes on top of this feud, right? I don't care if I ever see CM Punk wrestle again. I don't care at all. And I think I speak for a lot of people. CM Punk is already transitioning to the role of commentator or some other bullshit, right? He's not good enough. He's not good enough anymore to be a real wrestler. He's too old, and quite frankly, even when compared to people like Cody Rhodes, he just looks unathletic, right? So we have to just basically suspend all disbelief and live in fantasy land where CM Punk has a chance to beat up Drew McIntyre, right? Oh, CM Punk trained with Randy Couture. Like, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Drew McIntyre would beat him and probably would beat Randy Couture at this point too, right? Drew McIntyre is a horse, right? And that's the truth. Cucks. With that being said, the truth is that this build-up, they're going to present it as big time, but it's just not going to come off that way, right? I mean, there's going to be the initial excitement of CM Punk's 25th return, right? Because all this asshole does is he returns, then he fucks things up somehow, then he goes away, and then he returns again, right? But there comes a point where this formula becomes too repetitive, too redundant, and honestly, a little bit archaic, right? It's been a long time since we've had new formulas, new formulae being established in how to have someone return. CM Punk's going to return with another promo. This guy, all he does is talk at this point. He can't back it up because he's always injured or otherwise just like screwing things up in real life for the company. So if I were Vince McMahon or anyone who's in a position of authority, but more importantly, anyone who's in a position of having to pay this asshole for nothing, right? I'd be thinking to myself, man, this was not a good investment. How long until we get our money back from hiring CM Punk, right? The answer is probably never, right? Drew McIntyre, he's a solid hand. He could be a main eventer if they booked him differently. But alas, they have not booked him differently, right? The focus is always going to be on Roman Reigns and the title that Roman Reigns holds, right? Until Cody Rhodes becomes champion. And then the focus is going to be on how quickly will the fans turn on Cody's bitch ass, right? Then we have the possibility of CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. Unless Roman Reigns is the champion, I don't think anybody gives a damn about this at all, right? Obviously, Roman Reigns is better than CM Punk. Obviously, Roman Reigns is better than Cody Rhodes. So we'll see what happens with that. And then, of course, now that The Rock is back, quote unquote, hopefully The Rock kind of sticks around. Like, I know he's not going to wrestle at every pay-per-view, of course, but hopefully he kind of has a presence, right? Like every couple of months he shows up, does something, cuts a promo, who knows, who cares, right? But now The Rock's a heel, so we might see CM Punk versus The Rock again. I don't think anybody wants to see this, but it is possible, right? And that's another thing that, I mean, obviously that match I do care about because it involves The Rock, but otherwise I wouldn't give a shit. Then, of course, we have the big one, right? The big one according to the fans. Mid-card Mania, cucks. Cucky Rhodes versus CM Cuck. I don't care at all who wins. As I said in my Royal Rumble video, or the video before the Royal Rumble that I did, it doesn't matter if CM Punk wins or if Cucky Rhodes wins. It's the same shit, right? You know Cody Rhodes isn't special because if he didn't win and CM Punk won, you could have the same storyline again, right? You could just take Cody Rhodes out, put CM Punk in Cody's spot, and CM Punk and The Rock have a rivalry. CM Punk and Roman have a rivalry. And that's the end of that. Then we've got Seth Rollins. I mean, at this point, like, it's almost like humiliating to be Seth Rollins, right? Like, this guy is just there. He's injured too. Like, it's like everybody sucks ass. Like, everybody's either injured or like they're so brittle that they may get injured any given moment, right? So it's like, I don't give a damn when Seth Rollins is going to come back at WrestleMania, if he's going to come back on time and everything else. It doesn't matter to me. Maybe he's still injured and maybe just comes back at WrestleMania, just gets kicked in the face a couple times, and gets squashed. I don't know. I don't really care, right? Seth Rollins has proven time and time again that he is nothing but a mid-carder. And with that being said, none of this stuff is going to, long term, is going to provide any entertainment. At this point, we need to start thinking about who the next big star is. This current crop is just a bunch of jobbers. And quite frankly, the vast majority of them are on the wrong side of 35, which is the wrestler's prime. So it's like they're over 35, which would be fine normally, right? Because Roman Reigns is over 35. But Roman Reigns has main event of the last 6 WrestleMania, so he's established. These other guys are not established at all, cucks.